A single mother called the cop bad and delicious, and he heard it all. When he came to rescue her from her aggressive ex-husband, an unexpected passion blossomed. Their lives changed forever. Subscribe to the channel, like, and comment on where you're watching from. The clock struck 2:15 in the morning when Sarah Johnson jolted awake to violent banging on her apartment door in Brooklyn. Her heart raced as she got out of bed, quickly fixing her brown hair that fell over her shoulders. At 34, working for over 10 years as a nurse at the General Hospital, she had developed a keen instinct for emergency situations. But this time, danger was literally knocking at her door. "Sarah, open this door now. I want to see Lily." The drunken and aggressive voice of Mark, her ex-husband, echoed down the hallway. "You can't stop me from seeing my daughter." Sarah walked to the room of little Lily, just 8 years old, who was sleeping peacefully, hugging her pink teddy bear. The girl's angelic face, illuminated by the light of a butterfly-shaped lamp, still held the innocence that Sarah fought so hard to preserve. With careful movements, she closed the bedroom, door, and headed to the intercom. "Mark, it's 2 in the morning and you're clearly intoxicated," she said in a firm but controlled voice. "Lily is sleeping, and you know you can't come here at this hour. I'm calling the police." "Police? You're going to call the police on the father of your daughter? What kind of woman have you become, Sarah?" His words slurred, mixed with the strong smell of whiskey that she could even smell through the door. Mrs. Thompson, the retired 67-year-old neighbor living next door, appeared on her balcony in a robe and slippers, her grey hair tied up in a makeshift bun. Her eyes expressed the concern of someone who had witnessed this situation before. "Sarah, dear, do you want me to call my granddaughter? She's a lawyer and can help you." Mrs. Thompson whispered over the railing that separated their balconies. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, but I've already called 911. They won't be long," Sarah replied, trying to stay calm while watching Mark through the peephole. The 36-year-old man, who had once been her partner, now leaned against the hallway wall, his hair disheveled, his wrinkled dress shirt, and his eyes red from alcohol and rage. 15 minutes later, the sound of a siren cut through the silence of the Brooklyn night. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief when she heard firm footsteps climbing the stairs of the building. Through the lock, she saw 2 police officers approaching. A woman around 40 years old, her hair neatly tied in a military bun, and a man who made her heart skip a beat. He was about 6'1", with broad shoulders that filled his navy blue uniform perfectly, military-cut brown hair that revealed a few rebellious strands on his forehead. His deep brown eyes, like Midwest coffee, conveyed seriousness and authority. The angular face, with a small scar on his chin, suggesting untold stories, sported a 5 o'clock shadow that gave him a rugged and trustworthy look. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Daniel Smith, and this is Officer Patricia. Did you call us?" His voice was deep, with a slight accent that hinted at a Midwest origin. "Yes, I did. This is my ex-husband, Mark. We've been divorced for 2 years, and he has a restraining order preventing him from approaching me and our daughter outside of supervised visitation days," Sarah explained, handing over the paperwork she always kept organized in a folder by the door, a result of her meticulous personality developed in her nursing profession. Daniel examined the papers carefully, his eyes scanning each detail with the precision of someone experienced. Sarah couldn't help but notice how large and well-groomed his hands were, with trimmed nails and no rings, a detail that didn't go unnoticed. "Mr. Mark, are you aware that you are violating a restraining order issued by the court?" Daniel asked, approaching Mark with a firm but controlled stance. "Oh, come on, man, I just want to see my daughter. What's wrong with that?" "This woman is keeping me away from Lily, you know." Mark tried to straighten up but swayed slightly. Officer Patricia strategically positioned herself next to Daniel, her hand close to her non-lethal equipment while closely watching Mark's movements. Her years of experience had taught her that intoxicated and agitated men could be unpredictable. "Sir, I need you to come with us. You're in a state of intoxication and violating a court order," Daniel said with authority but without aggression. "Any resistance will only worsen your situation." "What the hell, man? This is ridiculous. You're going to arrest a father for wanting to see his daughter." Mark raised his voice, causing Daniel to instinctively position himself between him and Sarah's door. It was at that moment that Sarah turned to Mrs. Thompson and whispered, not realizing she would be heard, "Wow, Mrs. Thompson, this cop is bad and delicious at the same time. What a man." Daniel, whose years of military and police service had developed exceptional hearing, caught every word. An almost imperceptible smile crossed his lips before he quickly resumed his professional expression. He knew he shouldn't have heard that, much less felt the warmth rising in his chest at the comment. "All right, Mark, enough chit-chat. Let's go," Patricia said, losing patience with the man's passive resistance. As they handcuffed Mark, who finally gave in to the impossibility of escape, Daniel turned to Sarah with an expression that blended professionalism and something more, something she couldn't identify, but that made her cheeks flush slightly. "Ma'am, I need you to come to the precinct tomorrow to file a report. The incident report. Do you have the address of the 14th precinct in West Side?" he asked, handing her a card with the precinct's information. "Yes, I know it. Thank you for your quick response," Sarah replied, her fingers briefly brushing against his as she took the card. "It's our job, ma'am, and—" Officer Daniel hesitated for a moment, as if he wanted to say something more, but held back. "Have a good night, and make sure to lock the door." As the officers escorted Mark away, Sarah stood on the balcony watching until the patrol car turned the corner of Augusta Street. Her heart was still racing, not only from the scare with her ex-husband, but from something completely unexpected that had awakened within her that tense morning. "Oh, Sarah, what a handsome man. Did you see how he looked at you?" Mrs. Thompson commented with a mischievous smile. "How long has it been since you had a boyfriend?" "Mrs. Thompson, for heaven's sake. He's a police officer doing his job. Don't get the wrong idea," Sarah protested, but internally she couldn't deny that she had felt something different during those few minutes of conversation. 3 days later, on a sunny Thursday in February, Sarah had just picked up Lily from school when she heard the doorbell ring. Through the intercom, a familiar voice made her heart race again. "Miss Sarah, it's Officer Daniel Smith. I need to ask some follow-up questions about the incident on Saturday. Do you have a few minutes?" Sarah quickly glanced at herself in the hallway mirror, fixing her hair that was tied up in a messy ponytail after an intense day at the hospital. She wore a navy blue blouse that accentuated her light brown eyes and a pair of jeans that highlighted her delicate yet strong silhouette, the result of years of carrying patients and running through hospital corridors. Her hands, always well-groomed despite the hard work, trembled slightly as she pressed the button for the electronic gate. "You can come up. It's apartment 42, she said through the intercom, trying to keep her voice steady while her heart raced. Lily was in the living room doing her math homework, her blonde curls falling over the notebook as she tried to solve multiplication problems. The girl had inherited her father's green eyes, but possessed her mother's sweetness and sensitivity. When she heard footsteps on the stairs, she lifted her curious little eyes. "Mom, who is coming?" "It's the officer who helped us on Saturday, sweetheart. He needs to ask some questions about that day," Sarah explained, gently smoothing her daughter's hair. "Keep working on your homework, okay?" When Daniel knocked on the door, Sarah took a deep breath before opening it. He was not in his military uniform, wearing a white dress shirt with rolled-up sleeves, navy dress pants, and impeccably polished black dress shoes. His hair, which she had only seen beneath his military cap, was styled to the side, revealing some grey strands at his temples that gave him a mature and attractive look. A light, woody fragrance wafted toward her as he approached. "Good afternoon, Miss Sarah. Sorry to bother you, but I need to gather some additional information for the inquiry," he said, showing a small clipboard and pen. "Of course, no problem. Please, come in," she replied, gesturing for him to enter. The two-bedroom apartment was small but cozy, decorated with simple and functional furniture. The walls were painted in light tones, with a few pictures of natural landscapes that conveyed serenity. A bookshelf occupied one wall of the living room, filled with novels, nursing books, and some children's titles. The aroma of fresh coffee and a hint of lavender created a welcoming atmosphere that strongly contrasted with the tension of that Saturday morning. "Mom, it's the police officer," Lily exclaimed upon seeing Daniel, a smile lighting up her little face. "Hi, Lily. Do you remember me?" Daniel said, crouching down to be at the girl's level. His voice became softer, more paternal. "How are you?" "Good. I'm doing my math homework. It's hard," Lily replied with the typical honesty of children. "Math is important. I use it a lot in my job," Daniel said, glancing briefly at the notebook. "You're doing really well." Sarah watched their interaction with a mix of tenderness and surprise. Few men showed genuine interest in Lily, and she could see that Daniel was not just being polite. There was a real connection there. "Lily, how about you finish your homework in your room so I can talk to Daniel," Sarah suggested, realizing she had naturally used his first name. "Okay, Mom. Bye, Officer Daniel." Lily waved cheerfully before gathering her materials and heading to her room. "She's a very smart girl," Daniel commented as he stood up. "She must have taken after her mother." Sarah felt her cheeks flush slightly. "Thank you. Would you like some coffee? I just made some." "If it's not too much trouble," he accepted, following her to the small kitchenette. The kitchen was organized with the precision of someone used to working under pressure. Every utensil in its place, spices neatly lined up, a small herb garden on the windowsill overlooking an internal courtyard. Sarah served the coffee in 2 blue porcelain cups, a simple yet elegant set she had received from her mother. "So, what information do you need?" she asked, leaning against the kitchen counter. Daniel opened the clipboard, but his eyes seemed more interested in studying her face than reading the notes. "Actually, I need to know if he had violated the restraining order before, if there are other incidents that you haven't reported." "Unfortunately, yes," Sarah sighed, stirring her coffee slowly. "Twice he showed up here outside of visiting hours, once at Lily's school, trying to pick her up without permission. But I always managed to handle it without calling the police." "Why didn't you call before?" Daniel asked, genuinely curious. Sarah hesitated, looking out the window where the afternoon sun filtered through the leaves of the only tree in the courtyard. Because I still had hope that he would change, that he could stop drinking and become the man I once knew. And also because some people judge divorced women, you know, especially when police are involved. Officer Daniel Smith placed the clipboard on the counter and took a step closer to her. "Ms. Sarah, can I be frank with you?" "Of course," she replied, lifting her eyes to meet his. "You don't have to endure anyone's abusive behavior out of fear of what others will think. You are a strong, hard-working woman raising a daughter on your own. That's admirable, not something to be ashamed of," he said with conviction. "And anyone who judges that is the one who is wrong." The words touched Sarah in a way she hadn't expected. It had been a long time since she had heard someone acknowledge her struggles so directly and respectfully. Her eyes filled with tears that she quickly tried to hide. "Sorry, I didn't mean to," Daniel began, realizing he had made her emotional. No, it's okay," she interrupted, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "It's just It's hard to hear that. No one has ever said those words to me. Well, they should. You deserve to hear that every day, he said gently. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the distant noise of traffic on Augusta Street and the sound of Sophia humming in her room. Daniel picked up his clipboard again, but seemed reluctant to return to the official tone. "Look, I need to tell you something," he said, completely abandoning the formal treatment. "On Saturday, when you mentioned to your neighbor about me being, well, about what you said." Sarah's eyes widened, mortified. "Oh my God, you heard. I thought, wow, how embarrassing." Daniel chuckled softly, a deep and pleasant sound that made her stomach flutter. "Don't be embarrassed. It was quite a compliment. I was nervous, scared. I said something silly," she tried to justify, covering her face with her hands. "Sarah," he said her name in a way that made her lower her hands and look at him. "Can I confess something? I came here today, not just because of the inquiry." Her heart began to beat so fast that she was sure he could hear it. "What do you mean?" "I couldn't stop thinking about you. About your eyes when you were scared. The way you protected your daughter, your courage," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I know it's complicated. I know I shouldn't be here for personal reasons, but—" "Daniel," she whispered, moving closer to him, "I know you've been through a lot of trauma. I know it must be hard to trust men again, but I would really like to get to know you better, you and Sophia." Sarah felt a mix of fear and hope rising in her chest. Part of her wanted to run, to protect herself, to keep the walls she had built, but another, in part, a part that had been dormant for a long time, wanted to believe that there were still good men in the world. "I also couldn't stop thinking," she admitted softly. "But I'm very scared, Daniel. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared that Sophia will get attached, and then, what if we take it slow, no rush, no pressure, just getting to know each other," he suggested. Before Sarah could respond, Sophia appeared in the kitchen with her notebook in hand. "Officer Daniel, can you help me with this math problem? I can't figure it out," the girl asked naturally. Daniel looked at Sarah, who nodded, a small smile blooming on her lips. "Sure, Sophia. Let's see what you're trying to solve," he said, crouching down again to examine the notebook. As she watched Daniel patiently explaining math to Sophia, using simple and fun examples, Sarah felt something inside her warm up. Maybe, just maybe, it was worth taking the risk again. March arrived in Brooklyn, bringing with it the humid warmth and excitement of Mardi Gras. The streets of Beatrice Park filled with street blocks, colorful confetti stuck to parked cars, and the sound of festive music echoed through the bars that stayed open late into the night. It was Mardi Gras Saturday when Sarah took Sophia to the party at Beatrice Park Elementary School, located just a few blocks from their apartment. The schoolyard had been transformed into a small children's parade ground. Colorful banners hung between the yellow IP trees that were beginning to bloom, creating a natural and festive canopy. White plastic tables were scattered throughout the space, laden with chocolate truffles, coconut truffles, sweet popcorn, and soda in colorful disposable cups. The smell of hot dogs and cotton candy mingled with the scent of flowers that framed the setting. Sarah wore a canary yellow midi dress with a print of small white flowers, which highlighted her natural tan and contrasted beautifully with her loose brown hair over her shoulders. Flat sandals completed the casual look, perfect for a school party. Sophia wore a butterfly costume that she had helped make, blue and pink tulle wings with glitter, a tiara with colorful antennas, and a light blue dress that made her twirl happily around the yard. "Mom, look at all the kids, and there's pink cotton candy," Sophia exclaimed, tugging at her mom's hand toward the candy booth. "Hold on, sweetheart. First, let's greet Ms. Roberts, and then you can play," Sarah said, spotting Sophia's teacher among a group of parents. Ms. Roberts, A 45-year-old black woman with curly hair styled in an elegant bun approached them with a radiant smile. She wore a white lace top and a patterned maxi skirt, showcasing the natural elegance of someone who knew how to combine simplicity with sophistication. "Sarah, I'm so glad you both came. And Sophia, what a beautiful butterfly," said the teacher, bending down to hug the girl. "Did your mom help you make that? A costume?" "She did. And look, it sparkles when I dance." Sophia twirled, making the wings shimmer in the sunlight. "You look amazing. Ms. Roberts, thank you for organizing this. I know how much effort you all put in." "Sarah," said Lily, observing the lively movement around them, "imagine, it's a pleasure. The kids deserve to have fun, and the parents do too. By the way, Sarah, you look different, more radiant. Has something good happened?" asked Miss Roberts with that keen perception of an experienced educator. Sarah felt her cheeks flush slightly. In the 3 weeks since their meeting in the kitchen, she and Officer Daniel Smith had exchanged a few messages on WhatsApp. Simple conversations about the day, about Lily, small details that gradually built a careful intimacy. She hadn't told anyone, not even Mrs. Thompson, who seemed to have a radar for these things. "Oh, Ms. Roberts, you're seeing things," Sarah deflected. But the involuntary smile revealed that there was indeed something different. "Mom, can I go jump on the trampoline?" asked Lily, pointing to the inflatable where several kids were happily bouncing. "Sure, but be careful not to fall, okay?" Sarah allowed, watching her daughter run toward the fun. That's when she saw him. Daniel was leaning against one of the trees in the yard, wearing a light blue polo shirt and denim shorts, very different from the uniformed man she had met. His hair was a bit tousled, as if he had run his hand through it several times, a nervous habit she didn't yet know. He was watching the kids play with a gentle smile on his face, but his eyes were clearly searching for someone specific. When their gazes met, Daniel discreetly waved and began walking toward her. Sarah felt that familiar twist in her stomach, a mix of anxiety and anticipation she hadn't felt in years. "Hi," he said when he got close, his hands in the pockets of his shorts, in a relaxed but slightly tense posture. "What a coincidence to find you here." "Hi," she replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Lily studies here, and you? Do you have a child in the school?" Daniel chuckled softly, a sound she was starting to associate with good moments. "No, I don't have kids. I live nearby on Harmony Street, and I was passing by when I heard the music. I decided to take a look." "Seriously, you live on Harmony? I also live in the neighborhood on Augusta Street," said Sarah, surprised by the proximity. "Really? Then we're neighborhood neighbors." He smiled, and she noticed how his eyes sparkled when he genuinely smiled. Can I stay a bit? Or will it be weird?" Before Sarah could respond, a familiar child's voice shouted, "Uncle Daniel! Uncle Daniel!" Lily had spotted Daniel from the trampoline and was running toward them, her butterfly wings fluttering with her movement. She threw herself into his arms with the natural confidence of children who feel safe. "Hi, little butterfly. You look so pretty," said Daniel, lifting Lily effortlessly. "Did you make that costume?" "Mom helped me, and it has glitter that shines." Lily proudly showed off her wings. "Are you going to stay at our party?" Daniel looked at Sarah over Lily's head, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "If your mom lets me, I'd love to stay a bit," he replied. "Mom, can he stay? Please?" Lily clasped her little hands in supplication, making that irresistible face that Sarah knew well. "Of course he can, sweetheart. Daniel, have you had lunch yet? There are hot dogs and soda," offered Sarah, trying to sound casual while internally celebrating the opportunity to spend more time with him. "Actually, I haven't had lunch yet. A hot dog would be perfect," Daniel accepted, putting Lily back on the ground. The three headed to the snack stand, where Mrs. Johnson, a 60-year-old lady who had lived in the neighborhood for decades, was preparing hearty hot dogs with homemade tomato sauce, corn, peas, and crispy onions. "Look at that, Sarah found herself a boyfriend," commented Mrs. Johnson, with that typical lack of filter of older folks making Sarah blush like a pepper. "Mrs. Johnson, he's just a friend," protested Sarah, mortified. "A friend is what I call my husband of 40 years, the lady laughed, winking at Daniel. "Young man, I hope you know you're looking at one of the hardest working and most honest women in this neighborhood." "I'm sure of it," Daniel replied sincerely, looking directly at Sarah. "And I can see that she has raised a wonderful daughter." "Uncle Daniel, do you want to see me dance?" asked Lily, already pulling his hand toward the small dance floor where the kids were, dancing to festive songs. "Of course, little butterfly. Let's go," Daniel agreed, allowing himself to be dragged by Lily. Sarah watched them from the table where they had sat. Daniel crouched down to be at Lily's height and began dancing with her, following the simple steps the girl invented on the spot. He didn't seem to care about the curious looks from the other parents, completely focused on making Lily have fun. "He's handsome and likes kids. That's already better than the last one," commented Ms. Roberts, who had approached with 2 cups of soda. "Ms. Roberts," Sarah scolded, but she couldn't hide her smile. "Oh, girl, don't blush. It's been a while since I've seen you smile like that. How did you two meet?" Sarah briefly recounted the police incident, omitting some more intimate details. Ms. Roberts listened attentively, nodding her head in approval. "A police officer who came to help you and now dances Mardi Gras with your daughter. That sounds like something out of a movie, but it's real life," observed the teacher. "And Lily has already taken a liking to him, that's obvious." "That's what worries me," admitted Sarah, watching Daniel teach Lily a dance step. "What if it doesn't work out? What if he gets tired, like her father got tired?" "Sarah, dear, look into this man's eyes when he looks at you too. Look at his patience with Lily. That's not the behavior of someone who will tire easily," Ms. Roberts said wisely. "Sometimes we need to have the courage to believe that good things can happen." At that moment, Daniel and Lily returned to the table. Both slightly breathless and smiling widely, Lily climbed onto Sarah's lap, still excited from the dance. "Mom, Officer Daniel dances really well. He taught me a new step." "Really? What step was that?" Sarah asked, stroking her daughter's curls. "The happy butterfly step," exclaimed Lily, getting down from her lap to demonstrate. It was a child-friendly version of a simple samba, with movements that mimicked the fluttering of wings. "It was beautiful, sweetheart," praised Sarah, her eyes meeting Daniel's. "Thank you for dancing with her." "The pleasure was all mine," Daniel said, and she could see he was serious. "I haven't had this much fun at a party in a long time." "Don't you have any nieces or little cousins?" Sarah asked, curious about his life. "I have some cousins, but I've only been living in Chicago for a short time. I moved here from Belo Horizonte 6 months ago," Daniel explained. "My whole family stayed back in the Midwest." "And why did you come?" The question slipped out before she could censor herself. "Sorry, it's just my curiosity." Daniel hesitated for a moment, fiddling with the napkin on the table. "I needed a fresh start. A change of scenery, you know?" There was something in the way he said it that made Sarah understand there was a story behind that transfer, a story that perhaps involved heartache just like hers, but she respected his privacy, just as she hoped he would respect hers. "Chicago is a city that teaches you to start over," she said softly. "I also came from outside, from the Midwest, just like you." "Really? What city?" "Pochos de Caldas. And you?" "Divinopolis," Daniel replied, and they both laughed at the coincidence. "Practically neighbors by origin," Sarah noted. Yeah, it seems fate has a way of bringing about these coincidences, Daniel said, his eyes never leaving hers. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly. Daniel bought cotton candy for Lily, helped organize a game of musical chairs, and chatted easily with other parents, as if he had always been part of that world. When the sun began to set and the party was coming to an end, Lily was visibly tired, dozing off in Sarah's arms. "I think someone had too much fun," Daniel commented, watching the girl fight against sleep. "Yeah, time to go home," Sarah agreed, standing up with Lily in her arms. "Let me help," Daniel offered, taking Sarah's bag and the remnants of the butterfly costume. They walked together through the streets of Brooklyn, which were busier than usual due to the street festival happening in the neighborhood. The distant sounds of festive blocks created a cheerful soundtrack for their leisurely walk. "Daniel," Sarah said, as they reached the door of her apartment building, "thank you for today, for playing with Lily, for making her feel special." "Sarah, I should be the one thanking you. I haven't had such a light afternoon in a long time," he replied, handing her the bag. Can I call you tomorrow?" She looked at Lily, who was deeply asleep in her arms, then turned her eyes back. To Daniel, "Yes, you can. I would really like that." The months of April and May passed like a gentle breeze of spring wind. Daniel and Sarah established a delicate routine of casual meetings, a coffee at the corner bakery while Lily was at school, evening walks in Villa Lobos Park, long conversations on WhatsApp that stretched into the late hours. Each meeting deepened the connection between them, revealing layers of personality that fascinated them both. It was a Saturday in June when Sarah received the official invitation to the annual summer festival at General Hospital. The event would take place in the hospital parking lot, transformed into a fairground with colourful banners, food stalls, and a central bonfire that would be lit at dusk. For the staff, it was a tradition eagerly awaited all year, a chance to relax, dance, and forget the stress of their shifts for a few hours. Sarah had spent the whole week nervous about inviting Daniel. They had never appeared together at a public event, never acknowledged their relationship to their respective social circles. The relationship was still delicate, built on foundations of trust that grew slowly, like a plant needing care to bloom. On Thursday, while they were having coffee at Mr. Johnson's small bakery, a 70-year-old Portuguese man who knew all the residents in the area, she finally gathered the courage. "Daniel, on Saturday, there will be a summer festival at the hospital where I work," she began, stirring the sugar into her coffee with more force than necessary. "It's a simple thing, but would you like to go with me?" Daniel lifted his eyes from the piece of sugar bread he was cutting into small pieces, a habit she had noticed when he was deep in thought. His brown eyes studied her face for a moment that felt like an eternity. "Sarah, I would love to go," he finally said, a sincere smile lighting up his features. "But are you sure? Your colleagues will ask questions. They'll want to know who I am." "I know. And that's exactly why I'm inviting you," she replied with a determination that surprised her. "I'm tired of hiding that you exist. I'm tired of pretending that I don't feel happy when you send me a good morning message." Daniel reached across the small bakery table and gently touched her hand. The touch sent an electric current through Sarah's arm, reminding her of how long it had been since she allowed herself to feel physical attraction to someone. "Then I'll go," he said simply, "and I'll pick you up at home." On Saturday, at 6 in the evening, Sarah looked at herself in the bedroom mirror for the 10th time. She had chosen a red and white plaid dress with short sleeves that accentuated her waist and had a skirt that swayed when she walked. She completed the look with low-heeled brown sandals and a red bow in her hair, following the tradition of summer festivals. Lily wore a similar dress, smaller, with braids adorned. Sophia jumped on the bed, exclaiming, "Mom, you look so beautiful! Uncle Daniel is going to love it!" "Sophia, dear, today you're going to meet my friends from the hospital. Some may ask questions about Daniel, okay? And you can say he's a special friend of mine," Sarah said, sitting on the bed next to her daughter. "He's your boyfriend, right, Mom?" Sophia asked with that disarming frankness of children. Sarah felt her face heat up. "Why do you think that, sweetheart?" "Because you look happy when he's around, and because he looks at you the way John's dad looks at John's mom," Sophia explained, referring to the parents of a school friend who were clearly in love with each other. Before Sarah could respond, the doorbell rang. Daniel had arrived right on time, as always. When she opened the door, she almost lost her breath. He was wearing a blue and white checkered shirt, dark jeans, and brown leather boots. He had styled his hair with gel, but a few rebellious strands still fell over his forehead. The woody scent she was learning to associate with happy moments wafted toward her. "You look— Wow," he said, his eyes genuinely admiring her dress. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," she replied, feeling truly beautiful for the first time in a long while. "You look great, too. You look like a character from a movie." "Uncle Daniel, look at my dress!" Sophia came running in, twirling her skirt. "Wow, Sophia, you're a perfect little country girl," Daniel said, crouching down to admire the girl's dress. "And those braids are lovely." "Mom did them. She knows how to do a bunch of hairstyles," Sophia proudly shared. "Your mom is very talented," Daniel agreed, looking at Sarah with a tenderness that made her melt inside. Arriving at the hospital was a nerve-wracking moment for Sarah. The parking lot had been completely transformed. Colourful bunting created a festive ceiling over the space, connecting makeshift light poles. Wooden stalls sold corn pudding, sweet corn pudding, spiced cider, sweet and salty popcorn, peanut brittle, and coconut candy. A small country music band played on a stage set up in one corner, while couples danced in the central area. "Sarah, you made it!" shouted Fernanda, a 28-year-old red-haired nurse who worked in the same department as Sarah. When her eyes landed on Daniel, she made an exaggerated expression of surprise. "And who is this handsome guy accompanying you?" "Fernanda, this is Daniel. Daniel, this is Fernanda, my co-worker and friend," Sarah introduced, feeling her cheeks flush. "Nice to meet you, Fernanda," Daniel said politely, extending his hand. "The pleasure is all mine." "Wow, Sarah, you were hiding this treasure," Fernanda joked with her characteristic lack of filter. "Daniel, what do you do?" "I'm a police officer," Daniel replied calmly. "A police officer. Oh, how delightful. A man in uniform." "Sarah, you hit the jackpot," Fernanda continued, making Sarah want to disappear into the ground. "Fernanda, stop!" Sarah pleaded, mortified. "Let her be, it's all good." Daniel laughed, clearly amused by the situation. "Can I get you something to drink? Spiced cider? Soda?" "Spiced cider for me?" Fernanda immediately requested. "Me too, thanks," Sarah said. "And for Sophia?" Daniel asked, looking at the girl who was watching everything with curiosity. "Orange juice, if you have it," Sophia politely requested. As Daniel walked toward the drink stall, Fernanda grabbed Sarah's arm tightly. "Girl, this man is a dream. Where did you find him? And why didn't you tell me you were dating?" She fired off questions like a machine gun. "Fernanda, calm down. We are still getting to know each other," Sarah tried to explain. "And I didn't want to say anything until I was sure it would work out." "Work out? Sarah, did you see how he looks at you? How he treated Sophia? This man is in love," Fernanda declared with conviction. "And you are too, just by looking at your face." Before Sarah could respond, Daniel returned, balancing 4 cups. He had brought spiced cider for the adults and managed to get fresh orange juice for Sophia. The attention to detail didn't go unnoticed. "Thank you so much," Sarah said, accepting the cup and feeling her fingers brush against his briefly. All right, now we need to test if you guys know how to square dance, Fernanda announced, pointing to the dance floor where a new song was starting. Let's go, everyone. Oh, I don't know how to square dance, Daniel protested, looking genuinely worried. I'll teach you, Sophia immediately offered. It's easy, Uncle Daniel. If Sophia is offering to teach, there's no way to refuse, Sarah laughed, extending her hand to him. The square dance that formed included about 20 people among hospital staff and their families. The accordion player, a 60-year-old gentleman named Mr. Johnson, was famous in the area for his lively and cheerful square dances. His strong, clear voice commanded the steps, while the accordion created the traditional melody. "Look out for the snake!" Mr. Johnson shouted, and everyone ducked down. "Sway!" And the couples began to sway back and forth. Daniel followed the movements with intense concentration, trying not to step on Sarah's feet. She laughed at his concentrated expressions, which made him laugh too, creating a vicious circle of joy that completely enveloped them. "Anarie!" Mr. Johnson commanded. "Back!" Sarah whispered, gently guiding Daniel. "Big circle!" And everyone formed a large circle, holding hands. Sophia had found a partner in John, the son of one of the nursing staff, and danced with the seriousness of someone who took tradition very seriously. Her braids swayed to the rhythm of the music as she executed the steps perfectly. When the music ended, everyone applauded and laughed, sweaty and happy. Daniel pulled Sarah into a spontaneous hug, spinning her in the air briefly before setting her down. For a moment, they were very close, looking into each other's eyes, oblivious to the movement around them. "You dance really well for someone who doesn't. Did you know how to square dance?" she whispered. "I had a great teacher," he replied, his hands still on her waist. The moment was abruptly interrupted by a familiar and unwanted voice. "Sarah? Sarah, is that you?" She turned quickly and felt the blood run cold in her veins. Mark was there, just a few feet away, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and visibly intoxicated. His face was red, his eyes bloodshot, and he swayed slightly as he tried to approach. "What are you doing here, Mark?" Sarah asked, instinctively placing herself between him and Lily. "I came to the party. I came to see my daughter," he slurred. "And I find you here, getting cozy with this guy." Daniel immediately positioned himself next to Sarah, his demeanor shifting completely. The relaxed man from the dance had vanished, replaced by the officer trained to handle conflict situations. "Sir, you are violating the restraining order," Daniel said in a firm but controlled voice. "You need to leave immediately." "Who are you to give me orders?" Mark raised a voice, drawing the attention of other hospital staff. "You're the guy who's dating my ex-wife?" "Mark!" Sarah exclaimed, horrified by his language in front of Lily and her colleagues. "Daddy!" Lily approached timidly, confused by the situation. Fernanda quickly stepped in and took Lily by the hand. "Come on, Lily. Let's get some more juice while the adults talk," she said, leading the girl away from the tense situation. "Mr. Mark Smith," Daniel said, and Sarah realized he knew exactly who her ex-husband was. "I'm off duty, but I can easily call for backup. You have 5 minutes to leave, voluntarily." "Are you threatening me, in front of my daughter?" Mark tried to move closer, but Daniel subtly shifted to block his path. Dr. Carlos Henry, the clinical director of the hospital, a tall, imposing black man in his 50s, had noticed the commotion and approached with 2 security guards. "What's the problem here?" he asked with authority. "Dr. Carlos, this is my ex-husband. He shouldn't be here," Sarah quickly explained. "He has a restraining order." "Sir, I need to ask you to leave immediately. This is private property and an event for staff," Dr. Carlos said firmly. "This is ridiculous. I just want to see my daughter," Mark protested, but he was clearly intimidated by the presence of the security guards. You can see your daughter on the days and times set by the court at the appropriate location, Daniel interjected. Not here, not now, and not in this state. Mark looked around, realizing he had drawn the attention of dozens of people and was clearly outnumbered. His intoxication did not prevent him from assessing the situation. "This isn't over, Sarah," he threatened before turning and stumbling away. An awkward silence hung over the group for a few seconds before Dr. Carlos broke the tension. "Sarah, are you okay? Do you need anything?" he asked with genuine concern. "I'm fine, doctor, thank you," she replied, trembling slightly. "And you?" Dr. Carlos turned to Daniel. "Daniel Smith, police officer. I'm a friend of Sarah's," Daniel introduced himself. "Very well, if there's any trouble, we have security here at all times," Dr. Carlos assured before stepping away. Daniel turned to Sarah, who was visibly shaken. Her hands trembled as she tried to fix her hair that had come undone during the tension. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, touching her arm. "He's gone." "I can't believe he did that," Sarah whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "In front of my colleagues, in front of Lily." "Sarah, look at me." Daniel gently took her face in his hands. "You didn't do anything wrong. You have the right to be happy. You have the right to date. You have the right to take your daughter to a party. But now everyone will talk, will judge," she started. "And so what?" Daniel interrupted firmly. "Anyone with half a brain saw exactly what happened here. They saw a drunk man disturbing a mother and a child, and they saw another man defending you. There's nothing to be ashamed of." Fernanda returned with Lily, who looked worried but not scared. The experience had shown the girl that Uncle Daniel was truly capable of protecting them. "Mom, are you okay?" Lily asked, hugging Sarah's leg. "I am, sweetheart. Daddy has already left," Sarah reassured, stroking her daughter's hair. "Did Uncle Daniel make him leave?" Lily asked, looking at Daniel with admiration. "Yes, little butterfly, and you won't need to do that again," Daniel promised, kneeling to be at her level. The rest of the party went more smoothly, but the magic had been broken. Sarah tried to keep the festive spirit for Lily's sake, but it was clear that the encounter with Mark had shaken her confidence. Daniel stayed close, alert for any sign that Mark might return. When they said goodbye at Sarah's apartment door, it was almost midnight. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat of Daniel's car during the ride home. "Sarah, I'm really sorry for what happened today," Daniel said, carrying the sleeping Lily in his arms as Sarah opened the building door. "You don't have to feel anything. You were amazing," she replied, her emotions overflowing. "The way you defended me, how you protected Lily. That's what you do for the people you love," Daniel said softly, the words coming out before he could think. They both paused in the middle of the building hallway, the weight of the words hanging between them. It was the first time the word love was mentioned, even if indirectly. "Daniel," Sarah began. "I know it's too soon to talk about these things," he quickly interrupted, "but after what happened today, I needed you to know that I'm here, that I will be here." Sarah stepped closer to him, Lily still peacefully asleep in his arms, and kissed him gently on the lips. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The month of July brought the dry, cold characteristic of the Midwest winter and a revelation that would completely change the dynamics of the relationship between Sarah and Officer Daniel Smith. It was a gray Tuesday when Sarah arrived at the 14th Precinct to follow up on the case against Mark Smith. The old building, with its peeling walls and the permanent smell of strong coffee mixed with old paper, always caused her an unease she couldn't explain. The reception was crowded with people waiting for assistance, women with children in their arms, men in work overalls, young tattooed individuals with suspicious expressions. Sarah held tightly to the folder containing all the paperwork as she approached the service desk, where a middle-aged clerk typed reports with impressive speed. "Good morning. I'm here to follow up on the restraining order case against Mark Smith," Sarah informed, handing over the protocol. "Just a minute, please," the clerk said without looking up from the computer. After a few minutes, she frowned. "You need to speak with the responsible officer. Dr. August will see you now." Sarah was led down a narrow corridor to a room with a frosted glass door that read, "Dr. August Miller, Chief Officer." When the door opened, she felt the world collapse beneath her feet. The man, approximately 45 years old, with graying hair slicked back, a well-tailored navy suit and glasses, was someone she knew very well. August Miller was Mark's brother, the brother-in-law who had made her life a nightmare during her marriage and who had always supported his brother's controlling behavior. "Sarah," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What an unexpected surprise." "August," she replied, trying to maintain her composure. "I didn't know you had been transferred to this precinct. 3 months ago, actually. And I must say, I was interested when I saw your name in the reports," he said, gesturing for her to sit in the chair across from his desk. "It seems my brother has been misbehaving." The room was decorated with diplomas on the walls, an American flag in one corner, and a photo of August receiving some police commendation. The air conditioning made a constant noise that heightened the tension in the room. Your brother is systematically violating the restraining order," Sarah said firmly, placing the folder on the desk. "And I need the necessary measures to be taken." August opened the folder and examined the documents with a thoughtful expression. Sarah observed his hands, similar to Mark's, but more refined, without the signs of intoxication that her ex-husband had developed. "Sarah, you see, Mark is going through a tough time. The divorce, the distance from his daughter. Perhaps you two could talk, reach an agreement," he suggested in a paternalistic tone. "An agreement?" Sarah repeated incredulously. "August, your brother showed up drunk at my door at 2 in the morning and then crashed a party at my work. What kind of agreement are you suggesting?" "Look, Sarah, I understand your position, but I also understand Mark's. He is Sophia's father. He has rights," August said, leaning back in his chair. "And from what I see here in the reports, you are accompanied by a police officer, Daniel Smith." The tone in which he pronounced Daniel's name made Sarah realize there was more behind this conversation. "And what does that have to do with the case?" "It could complicate things, don't you think? A police officer getting personally involved with someone who is part of an investigation that could come through his precinct," August insinuated. "It could raise questions about impartiality." Sarah felt her blood boil. "Are you threatening me, August?" "Not at all. Just observing that the situation is delicate." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the busy street. "Perhaps it would be better for everyone if you took a break from this relationship, at least until we resolve the issue with Mark." "This is absurd. You can't mix your family relationship with your work," Sarah protested, also standing up. "Sarah, I am a professional. I'm just trying to avoid unnecessary complications," he said with false cordiality. "Think about what is best for your daughter." Sarah left the precinct with shaky legs and a racing heart. The light rain that had started to fall perfectly matched her gloomy mood. She called Daniel immediately. "Hello, love," he answered with a worried voice. "How was it at the precinct?" "Daniel, I need to tell you something, and it's not good," she said, seeking shelter under the awning of a nearby bakery. They met an hour later at a cafe in Brooklyn. Daniel arrived still in uniform, indicating that he had left work to meet her. His face showed concern when he saw Sarah's haggard expression. "The officer responsible for my case is August Miller," she said bluntly as soon as he sat down. "August Miller?" Daniel repeated, frowning. That name sounds familiar. He is Mark's brother, my ex-brother-in-law, Sarah added, watching Daniel's face pale. My God, Daniel whispered, running his hands over his face. Sarah, this is a serious conflict of interest. He can't judge a case involving his own brother. I know that, but he made it clear that he won't recuse himself. And more, he hinted that our relationship could complicate things for you professionally, Sarah recounted, her voice heavy with frustration. Daniel was silent for a few minutes, processing the information. The waitress brought the coffees they had ordered, but both seemed to have lost their appetite for anything. Sarah, I need to tell you something too, Daniel finally said. This morning my captain called me in for a talk. Someone made an anonymous tip saying that I was personally involved with someone connected to a police case. What? Sarah's eyes widened. But it's exactly what August meant by complications, he finished. Daniel bitterly said, Sarah, they are trying to separate us, and the worst part is, technically, they are not wrong. There is an ethics code that— No, Sarah interrupted, her voice trembling with emotion. Don't tell me you're going to give up on us because of bureaucratic rules. I don't want to give up, Daniel said, taking her hands across the table. But I need to be realistic. If I stay involved in your case, I could be transferred, or worse, face disciplinary action. And if that happens, I won't be able to help you at all. Sarah jerked her hands away. So that's it? They win? Mark and Augusto get what they want? That's not it, Daniel tried to explain. I'm trying to find a way around the situation. I spoke with a lawyer I know, and he said I can request a transfer to another precinct voluntarily. That way, I won't be linked to your case anymore. And would you do that? Request a transfer for my sake? Sarah asked, surprised. Sarah, I would do anything for you and Lily, he said earnestly. The problem is that a transfer could take weeks, and until then, we have to stay apart, she concluded bitterly. Not apart, just discreet, Daniel suggested. We can meet far from here on weekends. At Central Park, for example. The idea of having to hide their relationship as if it was something shameful revolted Sarah, but she also understood the difficult position Daniel was in. And Lily, how am I going to explain to her that she can't see you regularly anymore? She asked, her voice choked. We'll explain together. We'll say it's temporary, that soon everything will go back to normal, Daniel said, but his own voice showed uncertainty. That night, Sarah told Lily everything in the gentlest way possible. The girl, with her precocious intelligence, understood that there were bad people trying to separate her mom from Uncle Daniel, but that they wouldn't give up. Mommy, does Uncle Daniel still like us? Lily asked at bedtime. He likes us very much, my love. So much that he's fighting to stay with us, Sarah replied, stroking her daughter's hair. Then it's okay. I can wait, Lily said with the childlike simplicity that sometimes contained more wisdom than any adult. The following weekends turned into clandestine meetings in Central Park. Daniel and Sarah would meet at the entrance of Gate 3 near the Museum of Modern Art every Saturday morning. They brought snacks in a wicker basket that Sarah had specially bought for these occasions. Whole grain sandwiches, orange juice in thermos bottles, homemade chocolate truffles that Lily insisted on making for Uncle Daniel. The park, with its 843 acres of green space in the heart of New York, offered the anonymity they needed. Among the tree-lined paths around the artificial lakes, they could talk freely without fearing prying eyes. Lily ran across the lawns, fed the ducks in the lake, and played in the playgrounds, while her adoptive parents, as she had started to think of them, discussed plans for the future. My lawyer said the transfer request was approved, Daniel told Sarah on a sunny August Saturday. They were sitting on a bench near the lake, watching Lily throw corn to the ducks. I'm going to the precinct in the south side in Jabaquara. That's good, right? Sarah asked, offering him a turkey sandwich. It is and it isn't. I stay away from Mark's case, but I also stay far from you geographically. Jabaquara is on the other side of the city, Daniel explained, accepting the sandwich but without much appetite. Daniel, are you sure it's worth it? All this sacrifice, all this complication. Sometimes I think it would be easier for you if I gave up, he interrupted her. Sarah, look at me. Do you really think I would go through all this if I wasn't absolutely certain that you two are what I want in my life? She looked into his eyes and saw the sincerity that reassured her every time fear tried to take over. I know. I'm sorry for doubting. You have the right to doubt. After all, it's not the first time a man complicates your life, Daniel said with a sad smile. But I promise you, we will get through this. Augusto won't be able to separate us. Lily came running back, her hair flying and her cheeks flushed from running. Mommy, Uncle Daniel, the ducks ate everything. They really liked the corn. That's great, sweetheart, Sarah said, pulling her daughter into a hug. It's time for us to go. Already, protested Lily, but we just got here. We've been here for 3 hours. Little butterfly, Daniel laughed, getting up from the bench. But we'll come back next Saturday. Promise? Lily extended her pinky to him. I promise. Daniel intertwined his finger with hers, sealing the commitment. During the week, they kept in touch only through text messages, being careful not to leave traces that could compromise Daniel. The messages were simple but filled with longing. Good morning. How did you sleep? I dreamed about you two. Lily asked if we're going to see the ducks again on Saturday. Of course we are. I'm looking forward to it. I miss you. I miss you too, but soon this will pass. It was a Thursday in September when Sarah received a call that would change everything again. Lily had started showing strange symptoms, high fevers that came and went, extreme fatigue, joint pain. As a nurse, Sarah knew that those symptoms could indicate anything from a simple infection to something more serious. The blood tests revealed an alteration in the levels that required immediate investigation. The pediatrician, Dr. Robert Smith, a serious man in his 50s with over 20 years of experience, got straight to the point. Sarah, we need to admit Lily for more detailed tests. It could just be an infection that is resistant to antibiotics, but we need to rule out other possibilities. The world of Mariana collapsed at that moment. The word hospitalization echoed in her head as she tried to maintain her composure in front of Lily, who was in the office playing with a tablet borrowed from the nurse. For how long? She asked, her voice barely coming out. A week, maybe 2. Depending on the results, Dr. Robert replied, with the necessary but brutal honesty. That night, for the first time in weeks, Mariana called Daniel directly. She could no longer keep up the facade that everything was fine. "Hello?" he answered on the second ring. "Daniel," she said, and just hearing her name pronounced that way made him understand that something was terribly wrong. "What happened?" "It's Lily. She's going to have to be hospitalized tomorrow," Mariana told him through tears. "Where? Which hospital?" Daniel was already clearly moving. She could hear the sound of keys and a door closing. "General Hospital. But Daniel, you can't come if someone sees you here." "Mariana," he said with a firmness she had never heard before, "I will be there. No matter what happens to me professionally, you need me, and I will be there." Lily's hospitalization at General Hospital felt like entering a nightmare that Mariana knew professionally but had never experienced as a mother. The pediatric room, with its walls decorated with colorful animal drawings and hanging mobiles, could not disguise the cold reality of the medical equipment surrounding the bed, where her 8-year-old daughter was trying to understand why she had to stay there. Lily was wearing a light blue hospital gown that made her look even smaller and more fragile. Her blonde curls were spread across the white pillow, and her normally bright green eyes, filled with curiosity, showed fatigue and confusion. An IV was connected to her little right arm, and the heart monitor emitted constant beeps that became the soundtrack of the most difficult days of Mariana's life. "Mum, why do I have to stay here?" Lily asked for the 10th time, her little voice sounding hoarser than usual. "Because the doctors need to find out why you're feeling tired, my love," Mariana explained for the 10th time, trying to keep her voice steady while stroking her daughter's hair. "And here they can take better care of you." Mariana had managed to get a temporary medical leave to stay with Lily, but that meant she spent 24 hours a day at the hospital, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair next to her daughter's bed. Her back ached, her eyes were swollen from crying, hidden in the bathroom, and she could barely eat the sandwiches that her colleagues from the hospital insisted on bringing. It was the 3rd night when Daniel showed up. Mariana had just managed to get Lily to sleep when she heard a soft knock on the room door. When she opened it, she found Daniel holding a small bouquet of white daisies and a brown teddy bear with a red bow around its neck. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" she whispered, nervously glancing at the hallway. "I came to see how you both are," he said simply, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. He was wearing civilian clothes, dark jeans, and a navy blue button-up shirt, in an attempt not to draw attention. His hair was messier than usual, indicating that he had run his fingers through it several times, a sign of nervousness that Mariana knew well. "Uncle Daniel," Lily's weak voice came from the bed. "Hi, little butterfly," he said, carefully approaching the bed. "How are you feeling?" "I'm tired, and this medicine tastes bad," Lily complained, but a small smile appeared on her lips when she saw him. "I brought you something," Daniel said, showing the teddy bear. "This is Teddy. He's very brave and will stay here to protect you at night." Lily took the teddy bear and hugged it to her chest. "He's cute. Thank you, Uncle Daniel. And these daisies are for your mom, who is the bravest woman I know," Daniel said, handing the flowers to Mariana. Mariana felt her eyes fill with tears again. It had been 3 days since anyone had treated her as a woman, only as the mother of the patient. Receiving flowers, no matter how simple, reminded her that she also needed care. "Daniel, you shouldn't be here," she whispered, but she couldn't hide the relief in her voice. "Where else would I be?" he replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Dr. Paula Miller, the pediatrician taking care of Lily, entered the room for the night check. She was a 40-year-old woman with brown hair tied in a low bun, small glasses on her face, and an always immaculate lab coat. She stopped upon seeing Daniel, clearly surprised. "Good evening. I'm Dr. Paula, responsible for Lily. You are?" "Daniel Smith. I'm Mariana's boyfriend," he said, the word coming out naturally for the first time in public. "Oh, that's great. Mariana needs support right now," Dr. Paula said with a genuine smile. "How is our patient?" "The fever has gone down a bit, but she's still very tired," Mariana reported. "The results of the last tests should come out tomorrow morning," the doctor informed, checking the IV and making notes on her clipboard. "Lily, how are you feeling, dear?" "Better. Uncle Daniel brought Teddy to protect me," Lily replied, showing the teddy bear. "How lovely. Having people who love us always helps in recovery," Dr. Paula said, winking at Daniel. "Mr. Daniel, has Mariana been eating properly?" "Doctor, that's not necessary," Mariana began, embarrassed. "Actually, I was just thinking of convincing her to go down for dinner," Daniel said. "She barely touched her food today." Great idea. Mariana, you need to eat well to take care of Lily. And, Mr. Daniel, it's good to know that she has someone looking after her too, Dr. Paula said before leaving. After the doctor left, Sarah settled into the other chair in the room, next to the armchair where Sarah had spent the last few nights. Daniel, you really can't stay here. If someone from work sees you, if Mark finds out, she tried to argue. Sarah, listen, Daniel said, taking her hands. I spoke with my captain today. I explained the whole situation, about Mark being Ricardo's brother-in-law, about the conflict of interest, about you and Lily. He understood perfectly and approved my immediate transfer. Immediate transfer? What do you mean? Starting Monday, I'll be working in the West Side. I have no official connection to your case anymore, Daniel explained. I'm free to be here, free to date you, free to take care of Lily. Sarah felt a mix of relief and guilt. Daniel, your career. My career will continue exactly the same, just in another place, he interrupted. And honestly, after seeing how the system can be manipulated by people like Mark, I think a change will do me good. Lily had fallen asleep again, hugging her. Teddy bear Teddy. Her breathing was more regular, and the fever seemed to have definitely subsided. The heart monitor showed stable beats, which eased Sarah's mind a bit. Do you have any idea what this means to me? Sarah whispered, looking at Daniel. Having you here, knowing I'm not facing this alone. You'll never face anything alone again, Daniel promised, gently kissing her forehead. They spent the night whispering, Daniel telling funny stories from his police work to distract Sarah, while she shared memories of Lily's childhood. When Sarah finally fell asleep in the armchair around 4 a.m, Daniel covered her with a blanket he had borrowed from the nursing staff and stayed awake, keeping watch. The next morning, Dr. Paula arrived with a much more relieved expression on her face, carrying a folder with test results. I have good news, she announced, waking Sarah and Lily. The tests showed it's an atypical bacterial infection, but it responds well to the antibiotic we're already using. It's nothing serious. You mean she's going to be okay? Sarah asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. She'll be great. We can probably discharge her tomorrow if she continues to respond well. To the treatment, Dr. Paula confirmed. Sarah broke down in tears of relief. All the fear, all the tension from the past few days came out at once, as if a dam had burst. Daniel hugged her tightly, letting her cry on his chest while murmuring words of relief and gratitude. Mom, why are you crying? I'm okay, Lily said, concerned. They're tears of joy, my love, Sarah explained, wiping her eyes. You'll be able to go home soon. And can Uncle Daniel come with us? Lily asked hopefully. Daniel looked at Sarah, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded, a huge smile lighting up her face. Yes, little butterfly, now he can always come with us, Sarah replied. Later that day, while Lily slept after lunch, Daniel and Sarah walked through the hospital corridors hand in hand for the first time in weeks. They no longer cared who might see them. The crisis had made it clear what truly mattered. Daniel, I need to ask you something, Sarah said when they stopped in front of a window overlooking the hospital courtyard. Of course, go ahead. When you told Dr. Paula that you were my boyfriend, were you serious? She asked, surprising herself with her own courage. Daniel turned to her, took her face in his hands, and kissed her softly. It was their first kiss, right there in the hospital corridor, with the smell of antiseptic in the air and the sound of medication carts passing by. It wasn't romantic in the traditional sense, but it was perfect because it represented the pure truth of what they felt for each other. Sarah Johnson, he said when they pulled apart. I love you. I love the strong woman you are. I love the devoted mom you are. And I love Lily as if she were my daughter. I want to be your boyfriend, your companion, your partner in everything. I love you too, she replied, the words finally free to be spoken. And I know Lily loves you too. So are we officially together? No more hiding, no more secret meetings in the park? Daniel joked. Officially together, Sarah confirmed, sealing the promise with another kiss. When they returned to the room, they found Lily awake and playing with Teddy. She saw them holding hands and clapped her hands in joy. "Now you guys are really dating?" she asked, with the insight of children. "We are, my love. What do you think about that?" Sarah asked. "I think Uncle Daniel is going to be a really cool dad," Lily said naturally, making both adults exchange emotional glances. "Lily, would you like me to be like a dad to you?" Daniel asked, crouching beside the bed. "I would love that, but can you still be Uncle Daniel? I like that name," she requested. "Of course I can. I'll be Uncle Daniel who takes care of you like a dad," he promised. That night, for the first time in months, Sarah slept truly peacefully. Lily was recovering, Daniel was there beside them, and finally, there were no more secrets or fears separating them. Love had overcome all complications. The next day, when Lily was discharged from the hospital, the three of them left as a family. Daniel carried Lily in his arms to the car. She's still a bit weak, but radiant to be going home. Sarah watched the scene, the man she loved carrying the daughter she loved, and knew that despite all the obstacles they might still face, they had found something rare and precious, a true and unconditional love. October arrived in New York with its mild spring, bringing purple blossoms blooming along the avenues and a gentle warmth signaling the end of winter. For Sarah, Daniel and Sophia, it was also the month when they could finally live their relationship openly, without the professional complications that had plagued the previous months. Sophia had fully recovered from the infection, returning to school with renewed energy and proudly telling her classmates about Uncle Daniel, who became a dad. Daniel had adapted well to the new precinct in the West Side. His colleagues welcomed him with respect, especially when they learned that he had requested a transfer due to ethical issues related to a family case. The precinct captain, Dr. Mark Johnson, a 52-year-old black man with an impeccable reputation, had commented that they needed more officers with that kind of character. It was a sunny Thursday when Daniel received a call that would change the peaceful dynamic they had managed to establish. "Son, it's Mom," said the voice on the other end, laden with the accent he had known since childhood. "Mom, what a surprise! How are you?" Daniel replied, immediately sitting up straight in his chair. At the precinct, Mrs. Thompson, 62, was a woman of iron forged in the traditions of the Midwest. A widow for 5 years, she had raised 4 children practically alone after her husband developed alcohol problems. Daniel was the youngest and had always been her favorite, the son who followed the path of law and order that she respected so much. "I'm fine, but worried about you," she said directly. "I received a call from Mrs. Roberts, who has a daughter living in New York. She told me some things." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of things, Mum? That you're getting involved with a divorced woman who has a daughter from another marriage. Is that true, Daniel?" The question came loaded with a tone of disapproval that Daniel knew well. Mrs. Thompson had always been a woman of traditional values, a practicing Catholic who believed that marriage was for life and that blended families were unnecessary complications. "It's true, yes, Mum. Her name is Sarah. She's a nurse, a wonderful woman, and Lily is an amazing girl," Daniel said, trying to maintain a respectful but firm tone. "Daniel, for God's sake, how can you get involved with a woman who has been married before, and on top of that, with a child who isn't yours?" Mrs. Thompson's voice rose a pitch. "Don't you think about what people will say?" "Mom, I care about what you think, but not about what people will say," Daniel replied, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. Sarah is an honest, hard-working woman who raised a beautiful daughter on her own after her husband became an alcoholic. Then she chose poorly with her first husband. And that's not your problem, Mrs. Thompson retorted. Daniel, you're 38 years old, never married. You could choose a single, virgin young lady from a good family. Why complicate things? The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Mrs. Thompson alternating between practical and emotional arguments to convince her son to end the relationship. Daniel tried to explain, but he realized he was talking to a wall built by decades of conservative values. Mom, I'm going to spend a few days in Springfield next month, and I want to bring Sarah and Lily for you to meet, Daniel finally said, making a brave decision. Daniel, you can't be serious, exclaimed Mrs. Thompson. Bring that woman here. What will the neighbors think? What will the church folks say? They will say your son is happy, Daniel said firmly. Mom, I love this woman and this child. They are my family now. You can accept this and gain a wonderful daughter-in-law and granddaughter, or you can lose contact with me. Daniel Smith, how dare you give me ultimatums? Mrs. Thompson's voice was almost shouting. After everything I've done for you? Mom, I'm not giving an ultimatum. I'm being honest. I won't give up Sarah and Lily for anything in this world, not even for you, Daniel said, his voice trembling with emotion. The call ended with Mrs. Thompson abruptly hanging up. Daniel stared at the phone for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. It was the first serious fight he had had with his mother in decades. That night, he told everything to Sarah while they had dinner in her small apartment. Lily was in her room doing homework, and they could talk freely. Daniel, you fought with your mom because of me, Sarah said, clearly distressed. That's not right. I didn't fight because of you. I fought because she was being prejudiced and unfair, Daniel corrected, taking her hand across the table. Sarah, family isn't just who shares the same blood. Family is who we choose to love and care for. But she's your mom, Daniel, the only one you have. And what if she never accepts me? Sarah asked, her eyes filling with tears. Then it will be her loss, not ours, Daniel said with conviction. 2 weeks later, to Daniel's surprise, Mrs. Thompson called again. This time, her voice was calmer, almost resigned. Daniel, I spoke with Father Anthony about your situation, she began. He reminded me that Jesus welcomed all, people regardless of their past. And, Daniel waited, hopeful. And maybe I have been too harsh. If this woman makes you happy, if she is a good person, as you say, maybe I should meet her before judging, Mrs. Thompson admitted with difficulty. Mom, are you serious? Daniel could hardly believe what he was hearing. I am, but with conditions, she quickly added. You all come here to Springfield, stay at Mrs. Roberts' house, no sleeping together in my house without being married, and I want to meet this girl too. Daniel laughed, relieved. Of course, Mom, just the way you want. By the end of October, Daniel, Sarah, and Lily, they boarded a bus, headed to Springfield. Sarah was more nervous than she had ever been in her life. She had bought new clothes for herself and Lily, wanting to make the best impression possible. Officer Daniel constantly reassured her, but she knew that this meeting could define the future of their relationship. Springfield welcomed them with its small-town charm. The streets were wider than those in New York. The houses had backyards, and the pace of life was slower. Mrs. Thompson's house was located in the central area, a 2-story building painted light yellow, with a front porch decorated with plants and rocking chairs. Mrs. Thompson was waiting for them at the door. She was a medium-height woman with graying hair styled in a low bun, wearing a floral blouse and a brown midi skirt. Her brown eyes, similar to Daniel's, studied Sarah and Lily attentively as they climbed the porch steps. Mom, this is Sarah, and this is Lily, Officer Daniel introduced, clearly nervous. Mrs. Thompson, it's a pleasure to meet you, Sarah said politely, extending her hand. Daniel talks a lot about you. Mrs. Thompson shook Sarah's hand briefly, her eyes evaluating every detail, the simple yet elegant clothes, the respectful posture, the way she protectively held Lily's hand. "And you must be Lily," said Mrs. Thompson, crouching down to be at the girl's height. "Daniel told me you're very smart." "I am, and you look a lot like Uncle Daniel," Lily observed with the typical honesty of children. "Really? And what else did he tell you about me?" Mrs. Thompson asked, a small smile appearing on her lips. "That you make the best cinnamon rolls in the world, and that you taught him to be a good man," Lily replied, making Mrs. Thompson visibly emotional. "Well then, come on in. I made a special lunch," said Mrs. Thompson, her voice a bit softer. The inside of the house was exactly as Daniel had described. Dark wooden furniture, crocheted doilies on every surface, family photographs on the walls, and the smell of coffee always present in the air. The dining room was set with Sunday dishes, and the table practically sagged under the weight of the food. Chicken with okra, white rice, cowboy beans, sautéed greens, cracklings, seasoned flour, and the famous cinnamon rolls. "Wow, what wonderful food!" Sarah exclaimed sincerely. "I haven't seen such a bountiful table in a long time." "It's simple food, but made with love," Mrs. Thompson said while serving the plates. During lunch, the conversation flowed more easily than Daniel had expected. Mrs. Thompson asked about Sarah's work at the hospital, about Lily's school, about how they had adapted to New York. Sarah answered with honesty and simplicity, without trying to impress, just being herself. "And what about Lily's dad? Does he help with anything?" Mrs. Thompson asked directly, making Sarah swallow hard. "Unfortunately not, Mrs. Thompson. He developed problems with alcohol, and, well, he's not always a positive presence in her life," Sarah replied honestly. "I understand," said Mrs. Thompson, looking at Lily, who was eating quietly. "And how do you explain that to the girl?" "I tell her that her dad is sick, and that sometimes sick people do things that hurt those they love," Sarah explained, "but that it's not her fault." Mrs. Thompson nodded, approving of the approach. It's important for the child not to carry the guilt of the adult's problems. After lunch, while Daniel washed the dishes, something that surprised Sarah, who didn't know he could do that, Mrs. Thompson took Sarah and Lily to see the backyard. It was a large space with fruit trees, a well-kept garden, and a few chickens pecking around freely. "Can I collect the eggs?" Lily asked, enchanted by the chickens. "Yes, but be careful," Mrs. Thompson allowed, handing a basket to the girl. While Lily enjoyed collecting eggs, the two women sat on a bench under a laden fruit tree. "Sarah, can I say something?" Mrs. Thompson said after a few moments of silence. "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. When Daniel told me about you two, I was worried. Not because you are a bad person, but because I raised my children in a different time, with different values," the older woman explained. "For me, marriage was for life. Family was father, mother, and children of the same blood." "I completely understand," Sarah said respectfully, "and I respect your concern. But seeing you here today, seeing how you raised this girl, seeing how Daniel looks at you both—" Mrs. Thompson paused. "Maybe I was wrong about some things." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. "Mrs. Thompson, Daniel has always been my most sensitive child. After his divorce in Belo Horizonte, I thought he would never open up to love someone again," Mrs. Thompson continued. "But looking at him today, I see that he has started to smile for real again." "He makes me very happy too," Sarah said softly, "and he loves Lily as if she were his own daughter. I can see that, the way he looks at her, how she feels safe with him. That's not something you fake," Mrs. Thompson observed. "Sarah, can I call you daughter?" "Of course, Mrs. Thompson," Sarah replied, emotional. "Then, daughter, forgive me for judging you before getting to know you. And, Well, if Daniel asked you to come here, I imagine he is seriously thinking about the future. That night, at Mrs. Roberts's house where they were staying, Daniel asked how the conversation with his mother had gone. "I think I gained a mother-in-law," Sarah said, smiling. "Really?" Daniel picked her up in his arms, spinning her around the room. "Uncle Daniel, stop making noise. I'm trying to sleep," Lily complained from the next room, making them both laugh. On Sunday, before they returned to New York, Mrs. Thompson insisted on preparing a special breakfast. The table was covered with pastries: cornbread, cheese puffs, cheddar cheese, blackberry jam, homemade butter. "Lily, did you enjoy staying here in Uncle Daniel's city?" asked Mrs. Thompson. "I liked it a lot. It's quieter than New York," replied Lily. "And will you visit us there?" "If you invite me, I will," promised Mrs. Thompson. "We invite you," said Lily immediately. "And you can meet Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor. She has the same name as you." "What an interesting coincidence," smiled Mrs. Thompson. "Daniel, you will take good care of these two, right?" "Always, Mom. Always," promised Daniel. When they said goodbye at the bus station, Mrs. Thompson hugged Sarah and Lily as if they had been family for years. "Take care of my boy," she said to Sarah, "and come back soon." "We will, Mrs. Thompson. Your home is our home now," replied Sarah. During the trip back, Lily slept most of the time in Daniel's lap, while Sarah watched the scenery through the window. The hardest test had been overcome. Daniel's family had accepted his new reality, and now they could build the future with even more confidence. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked softly, so as not to wake Lily. "About how sometimes people surprise us positively," replied Sarah. "Your mom is an incredible woman." "She is, and she loved you both. I could see it," said Daniel, kissing the forehead of sleepy Lily. "Daniel," called Sarah. "I love you even more after this weekend," she confessed. "Why?" he asked, curious. "Because I saw where your kindness comes from, your honesty. I saw that you were raised with true love, even within rigid traditions," explained Sarah. "And because you stood up to your mom for us." "I would stand up to anyone for you too," Daniel said with conviction. "You are my family now." November arrived with its characteristic torrential rains of late spring in New York. The afternoons were marked by sudden storms that flooded the streets of Brooklyn and filled the air with the smell of wet earth and washed asphalt. For Sarah, that period of intense rain seemed to herald drastic changes to come. Life had settled into a comforting routine in recent months. Daniel had officially moved into an apartment on Especuelta Street, just 3 blocks from Sarah's home, making daily interactions easier. Lily had completely adapted to his constant presence, affectionately calling him Daddy Daniel in moments of intimacy, although she maintained Uncle Daniel in public by her own choice. It was a rainy Friday when everything began to crumble again. Sarah was finishing her shift at the hospital when she received a call from Lily's school. Ms. Roberts, the teacher, sounded tense and worried. "Sarah, can you come pick up Lily early today? There's been a situation here that I need to discuss with you in person," said Ms. Roberts, avoiding giving details over the phone. "Of course, Ms. Roberts. Is something serious happening? Did Lily get hurt?" asked Sarah, already imagining the worst scenarios. "It's not anything physical, but it's better to talk in person. Can you come now?" An hour later, Sarah was in the principal's office, sitting across from Ms. Roberts and Principal Maria Johnson, a 55-year-old woman with grey hair tied in a severe bun and reading glasses hanging from her neck by a gold chain. "Sarah, this morning we had a visit from a social worker from Child Protective Services," the principal began in a grave tone. "She came to investigate an anonymous report about your ability to raise Lily." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "A report? What kind of report?" "Someone claims that you're exposing Lily to inappropriate situations, that there is a man living with you without legal ties, and that the child is being emotionally neglected," explained Ms. Roberts, clearly embarrassed to have to convey that information. "This is absurd! Who made this report?" protested Sarah, rising from her chair. "The report is anonymous, but—" The principal hesitated. "The social worker mentioned that they received photos of you with a man in public places, suggesting inappropriate behavior in the presence of the child." Sarah immediately thought of the day of the summer festival at the hospital, of the photos that were surely taken without her knowledge during the confrontation with Mark. The signature of that attack was unmistakable. "Ms. Sarah, I need to be direct," continued the principal. "The social worker will want to talk to Lily on Monday, here at school. It's standard procedure in cases of reports. My daughter is going to be interrogated as if I were a criminal." Sarah's voice trembled with indignation and fear. "It's not quite an interrogation," Ms. Roberts tried to soften. "It's a conversation to check if there really is any problem." "But Sarah, you need to prepare yourself, and it might be good to have a lawyer present." Sarah left the school holding Lily's hand, trying to maintain normalcy while internally panicking. The girl, sensing her mother's tension, asked several times if everything was okay, but Sarah only replied that she was thinking about work. When they got home, Daniel was already waiting in the living room with a grim expression. He had received a similar phone call at his precinct. Someone had questioned the moral suitability of an officer living with a woman and her daughter without legal ties. "They are attacking from all sides," Daniel said after Sarah told him about the visit to the school. Lily was in her room, entertained with cartoons, allowing them to talk freely. "Daniel, is this going to affect your career again?" Sarah asked, worried. "I don't know yet. My captain said he would investigate the origin of the report, but in the meantime, I need to be careful," Daniel admitted, running his hands over his face in a gesture of exhaustion. "And what if you stayed at your place for a while, until this blows over," suggested Sarah, although the idea tore her apart inside. "Sarah, no," Daniel said firmly. "We are not going to let them separate us again. We've been through this once." "But what if Child Protective Services, deciding that Lily can't stay with me, what if they think I'm an unfit mom?" Fear was evident in Sarah's voice. Daniel pulled her into a tight embrace. "That won't happen. You're an exceptional mom. Anyone can see that. We'll hire the best lawyer we can find." On Saturday, through a referral from Dr. Carlos at the hospital, they went to the law office of Dr. Helena Vargas, a criminal lawyer specializing in family law. At 45 years old, with brown hair in a flawless bob cut and a navy blue suit, she exuded confidence and competence. "Analyzing the paperwork you brought," Dr. Helena said after reviewing all the documents. "This has all the characteristics of systematic harassment. The reports are vague, the evidence is circumstantial, and the timing is suspicious." "Do you think we can prove it was Mark?" Daniel asked. "We'll work in that direction, but it won't be easy. Anonymous reports are complicated to trace," the lawyer explained, "but we have some trump cards in our favor." "What do you mean?" Sarah questioned. "First, you have an exemplary professional history. Second, Lily is clearly well cared for and happy. Third, Daniel has a respectable career. And fourth, we have documentation of all the violations of the restraining order by your ex-husband," Dr. Helena enumerated. "And will that be enough?" Sarah asked anxiously. "It should be. But I'll be honest. Cases involving Child Protective Services can be unpredictable. We need to prepare for any scenario," the lawyer warned. Monday arrived loaded with tension. Sarah had spent the weekend mentally rehearsing how to explain to Lily what was happening. Without scaring her, she opted for a simple approach. An aunt would come to talk to her at school about how she was feeling, and it was important that she be honest and natural. "It's like when the doctor aunt asks if I'm in pain when I go to the doctor," Lily compared with her child logic. "Exactly, my love. Just answer the questions truthfully," Sarah advised, kissing her daughter's forehead at the school entrance. The wait was agonizing. Sarah requested leave from the hospital to be available in case she was called at school. Daniel managed to take the morning off and spent it with her in the apartment, trying to distract her with conversations about future plans, but both were visibly nervous. Around 2 in the afternoon, Ms. Roberts called asking Sarah to pick up Lily. Her voice was more relieved than in the morning, which gave Sarah hope. "How did it go?" Sarah asked as soon as she arrived at the school. "Lily was wonderful," Ms. Roberts said with a smile. "She spoke about you with so much love, about Daniel with such affection." The social worker was clearly impressed. "And what exactly did she ask?" "Basic and things. If she feels safe at home, if anyone hurts her, what her relationship with Daniel is like, if she has enough food and clothes," Ms. Roberts reported. "And Lily answered everything naturally. She mentioned that you both make chocolate truffles together, that Daniel helps her with homework, that he protected her when her dad showed up drunk." Sarah sighed in relief. "And now?" The social worker said she will prepare a report. "But from her expression, I didn't see any signs of concern," Ms. Roberts reassured. "Sarah, it's obvious to anyone that Lily is a loved and well-cared-for child." When Lily came out of the classroom, she ran to hug her mum with normal enthusiasm. "Mum, the aunt was really nice. She asked if you and Daddy Daniel take good care of me, and I said yes." "Daddy Daniel?" Sarah noticed her daughter had used the term without thinking. "It was an accident," Lily quickly said, "but the aunt asked if I like him, and I said I like him a lot, and that he's like a dad to me." That night, while Lily slept, Sarah and Daniel received an unexpected call from Dr. Helena. "I have news," the lawyer said. "I got some interesting information through my contacts. The report wasn't made just to Child Protective Services." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. "Simultaneous reports were made to the CPS, to the military police's internal affairs, and to the administration of the hospital where Sarah works," Dr. Helena revealed. "This demonstrates a coordinated and malicious attack." "This can't just be Mark's doing," Sarah concluded. "He wouldn't have the knowledge to orchestrate all this." "Exactly my thought, and I discovered one more thing. All the reports were accompanied by the same photos. You at the summer festival, you walking in the park with Lily," the lawyer continued. "These photos were taken by someone who systematically followed you." "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "Someone was spying on us." "And there's more," Dr. Helena said. "The social worker who interviewed Lily today called me. She was so impressed with the interview that she decided to expedite the process. She will issue a favorable report for you this week." "Does that mean that the case will be dismissed for lack of grounds? Lily stays with you, with no restrictions," the lawyer confirmed. "But we still need to find out who is behind all this." The answer came unexpectedly the following Thursday. Sarah was leaving the hospital after a night shift when she found a familiar person waiting for her in the parking lot. Mark, the chief who was Ricardo's brother-in-law. He was leaning against a black car, wearing a grey suit and sunglasses, despite it being a cloudy morning. His posture was calculatedly casual, but Sarah could feel the tension radiating from him. "Sarah, I need to talk to you," he said as she approached his car. "Mark, we have nothing to talk about, and you shouldn't be here," she replied, searching for her keys in her bag. "Actually, we do. It's about those reports you've been receiving," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sarah stopped looking for her keys and stared at him. "You?" "I was just fulfilling my civic duty to report an inappropriate situation," Mark said with false innocence. "A woman exposing a child to unstable relationships, a police officer who took advantage of your position to get involved with a victim." "Are you crazy?" Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear she felt. "I'm trying to protect my niece from bad influences," Mark retorted. And I still am, Sarah. This was just the first round. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. Daniel may have gotten away this time, but I have influence in many places. An officer with a questionable disciplinary history may have difficulties advancing in his career, Mark said, stepping closer to her. And single mothers who insist on making questionable choices may find that life in New York gets very complicated. Sarah felt a mix of fear and anger that made her tremble. What do you want, Mark? I want you to end this relationship and allow my brother to have normal visitation with his daughter, he said directly. It's that simple. And what if I don't do that? Then you'll find out how persistent I can be, Mark threatened, walking back to his car. Think carefully, Sarah. Is it worth putting your daughter in the middle of this war? When he left, Sarah stood in the parking lot for several minutes, processing what had just happened. For the first time since she met Daniel, she questioned whether it was really worth fighting against so many opposing forces. But then she remembered Lily's smile. When she played with Daniel, how he protected her, the love they had built together. And she knew that no matter how many Marks tried to separate them, she would fight to the end for the right to be happy with whom she chose to love. The war had only just begun, but this time she would not face it alone. December arrived with its muggy heat and the typical excitement of the holiday season in New York. The streets of Brooklyn filled with makeshift Christmas decorations, lights twinkling in the bars, and the intense movement of people doing last-minute shopping. For Sarah, Daniel, and Lily, however, the festive atmosphere contrasted sharply with the tension that hung over their lives after Mark's threats. In the 2 weeks following the encounter in the hospital parking lot, their lives had turned into a constant vigilance. Daniel had advised Sarah to always leave the hospital accompanied. Lily was picked up from school only by previously authorized individuals, and they avoided public places where they could be photographed again. It was a Saturday, December 15th, when everything changed unexpectedly. Sarah had taken Lily to do Christmas shopping at the mall, taking advantage of a toy promotion that the girl had seen on television. Daniel was working that day, covering a shift for a colleague who had called in sick. "Mom, can I bring the teddy bear that Daddy Daniel gave me? He'll want to see the new toys," Lily asked on the way, tightly holding the teddy bear she had received at the hospital. "Of course, sweetheart. Teddy can come with us," Sarah agreed, smiling at how attached her daughter had become to the gift. The mall was crowded, with exuberant Christmas decorations and background music creating a festive atmosphere. Lily was enchanted by a talking and walking doll, demonstrating all the toys' functions to her mom, when Sarah heard a familiar voice behind her. "Lily, my little girl." Sarah quickly turned around and saw Mark approaching, accompanied by a blonde woman around 35 years old whom she did not recognize. Mark was better dressed than the last time she saw him, wearing a clean dress shirt and dark dress pants, but his eyes still had that unstable gleam she had learned to fear. "Dad?" Lily hid behind Sarah's legs, hugging the teddy bear tighter. "Mark, you can't be here. There's a restraining order," Sarah said firmly, positioning herself between him and Lily. "Relax, Sarah. I'm accompanied by Miss Julia Miller, my lawyer," Mark introduced, gesturing to the woman beside him. "She specializes in family law." The lawyer stepped forward, extending a business card to Sarah. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm Miss Julia Miller, and I would like to talk to you about a friendly agreement for Mr. Mark to have visitation with his daughter." Sarah immediately noticed the surname Miller, and a suspicion began to form in her mind. "Are you related to Officer August Miller?" "I'm his wife," Miss Julia confirmed without hesitation. "But that does not interfere with my professional ability to represent my client." "Of course it does," Sarah protested. "Your whole family is involved in a campaign against me and my daughter." "Mrs. Johnson, let's maintain civility," Miss Julia said in a condescending tone. "We are here to propose a solution that benefits the child." "Mom, I want to go home," Lily whispered, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Lily, come here with your dad. I want to show you something," Mark called, extending his hands to his daughter. "No," Lily said firmly, backing away even more. "I want to stay with Mom and Daddy Daniel." Mark's expression hardened upon hearing Lily refer to Daniel as Daddy. "Lily, I am your real dad. That Daniel is just an intruder." "He's not an intruder. He protects me and plays with me," Lily retorted with the surprising courage of an 8-year-old. "Mark, you're scaring her," Sarah intervened. "Let's go, Lily." "Sarah, wait," Miss Julia said, partially blocking the way. "My husband told me about your situation. You are putting your daughter in a very vulnerable position with this insistence on maintaining a relationship that is clearly causing problems. The only problem is your family's obsession with controlling my life," Sarah shot back. It was at that moment that Lily, still hugging Teddy, inadvertently pressed the toy, activating a function she had discovered by accident but had never told anyone about. The teddy bear was not just an ordinary toy. Daniel had bought a model that had a voice recorder so that Lily could leave messages for him when he felt nostalgic. What no one knew was that the recorder had been running during a visit Lily made to her dad's apartment a few weeks earlier, capturing a conversation that now echoed through the mall corridor. "Mark, are you sure this plan will work?" It was the unmistakable voice of Mark Smith. "I'm sure, Ricardo. First, we get rid of the officer with the disciplinary reports. Then we use Child Protective Services to question Sarah's ability as a mum. And if that doesn't work, I have other resources at the precinct," replied Mark's voice. "What if Lily tells Sarah about our conversation?" Ricardo worried. "She won't say anything if you don't let her be alone with that guy. That's why you need to get more time with her. The more she stays away from him, the more she'll forget," Mark advised. "And are you sure Julia will be able to overturn the restraining order?" "My wife is one of the best family lawyers in the city. She'll argue that you've recovered from your drinking problem, that Sarah is alienating you from Lily, and that the environment where the girl lives now is not suitable because of the officer," Mark explained in detail. "And what if none of this works? Then I'll use my contacts in the internal affairs to create serious problems for Daniel. An officer with a dirty record can hardly maintain stable relationships," Mark concluded coldly. The silence that followed in the mall corridor was deafening. Miss Julia was pale, Ricardo looked like he had seen a ghost, and Sarah felt a mix of shock and relief for finally having the proof she needed. "Interesting," said a deep voice from behind the group. They all turned to see Daniel approaching, accompanied by 2 men in suits that Sarah didn't recognize. Daniel had a serious expression she had never seen, his eyes fixed on Ricardo and Miss Julia. "Daniel, how are you?" Sarah began. "I was doing some Christmas shopping in the store next door when I heard your voices," Daniel explained. "And these gentlemen are Investigator John Smith from Internal Affairs and Dr. Robert Johnson from the District Attorney's Office." The investigator stepped forward, showing his identification. "We are investigating reports of abuse of power and harassment involving Captain Mark Miller, and what we just heard is extremely relevant to our inquiry." "That recording was obtained illegally," protested Miss Julia, trying to regain her professional composure. "Actually, it was accidentally recorded by a child on her own toy during an authorized visit to her father," corrected Dr. Robert. "It is perfectly admissible as evidence." "Ricardo Smith," said the investigator, "you are being summoned to appear at Internal Affairs on Monday to give a statement about this conversation." "And Ms. Julia Miller," Dr. Robert continued, "you will be notified by the Bar Association about a possible ethical lawsuit for participating in a scheme of judicial harassment." Ricardo tried to approach Lily one last time. "Lily, sweetheart, come with Daddy. We can—" "No," Lily said with a firmness that surprised all the adults present. "I don't want to go with you. You're mean to Mom." "Lily," Ricardo tried, but the girl completely hid behind Sarah. "Mr. Smith," Daniel intervened authoritatively, "I suggest you leave voluntarily. Your presence here already constitutes a violation of the restraining order." Defeated and exposed, Ricardo left the mall, followed by Ms. Julia, who was desperately trying to call her husband to inform him about the disaster. "Mum, can I keep my teddy bear? He did something very important today," Lily said, hugging Teddy. "Of course, my love. Teddy was a hero today," Sarah agreed, hugging her daughter and Daniel simultaneously. "Sarah," Dr. Robert said, handing her his card, "you will need to give a statement about this entire situation, but I can assure you that with this recording, we have enough evidence not only to definitively dismiss the reports against you, but also to criminally prosecute those responsible for this scheme." "Does that mean?" Sarah began. "That means you are free to live your lives in peace," the investigator confirmed. "Captain Mark Miller will be removed from his duties for investigation and will most likely face charges of abuse of authority and harassment." That night, at home, while Lily slept hugging the teddy bear Teddy that had become her personal hero, Sarah and Daniel finally had the chance to talk about everything that had happened. "I can't believe it all ended like this," Sarah said, still processing the events of the day. "Sometimes justice works in ways we don't expect," Daniel observed. "Who would have imagined that the solution would come through the toy I gave to Lily?" "Daniel, do you realize what this means?" Sarah asked, looking into his eyes. "There's nothing stopping us from being together anymore. No professional complications, no family pressure, no judicial harassment." "Yes," Daniel said, pulling her closer on the couch, "and there's something I've wanted to ask you for months, but I could never manage because of all this confusion." "What is it?" Sarah asked, her heart starting to race. Daniel stood up from the couch and, to Sarah's total surprise, knelt on the living room floor, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Sarah Johnson," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Will you marry me? Do you want to officially build a family with me and Lily?" Sarah covered her mouth with her hands, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "Daniel, I've loved you since that first morning when you called me mean and delicious," he said, smiling. "And I love Lily as if she were my biological daughter. I want to take care of both of you for the rest of my life." "Yes!" Sarah exclaimed, extending her hand for him to put on the ring. "Yes, I want to marry you." "Can I join?" came Lily's sleepy voice from the bedroom door. "Of course, little butterfly," Daniel said, opening his arms to her. "Come here." About 50 people were waiting for the start of the ceremony. "After everything we've been through, all the complications, brother, sometimes the best things in life are the ones we have to fight the hardest for," philosophized Mark, "and anyone who looks at you three can see that this is true love." Dr. Carlos, who had volunteered to officiate the civil ceremony as a justice of the peace, approached the two men. "Daniel, it's time. The brides are ready." The music changed to the traditional wedding march played in a bossa nova version, and all the guests stood up. First came Lily, scattering rose petals along the path with the seriousness of someone on a very important mission. She walked slowly, as she had rehearsed, stopping occasionally to wave at acquaintances in the audience. Next, Sarah appeared, walking alone down the petal-strewn path, radiating confidence and happiness. She had chosen not to have a father to give her away because, as she explained to Daniel, "I chose to give myself away, and I want to walk to you on my own 2 feet." When their eyes met, both smiled simultaneously, and he felt his eyes fill with tears. She looked even more beautiful than in his dreams. and the way she walked toward him, unhurried, savoring each step, showed that this moment was special. For her, too. "Dear friends and family," began Dr. Carlos as Sarah reached the makeshift altar, "we are gathered here to celebrate the union of two people who found each other in the midst of a storm and discovered that together they could face any tempest." Lily positioned herself between the two, holding the rings on a small yellow satin pillow, proudly smiling at the audience. "Sarah and Daniel," continued Dr. Carlos, "you have built a family based on love, mutual respect, and care. And Lily, you are living proof that true love knows no barriers of blood or social conventions." Daniel took Sarah's hand and began to recite the vows he had written and memorized. "Sarah, when I met you that early morning, you were protecting your daughter like a lioness protects her cub. And I fell in love not only with the beautiful woman you are, but with the strength, courage, and capacity for love that you have shown. I promise to be your companion in all storms, your partner in all joys, and the father that Lily deserves." Sarah discreetly wiped away a tear before speaking her own vows. "Daniel, you appeared in our lives like a guardian angel and stayed as a real man. You taught me that it is possible to trust again, to love again, and that there are good men in this world. I promise to be your devoted wife, your faithful partner, and to raise our daughter with you, surrounded by all the love she deserves." "Lily," said Dr. Carlos, addressing the girl, "do you have something to say?" Lily had insisted on having a speech during the ceremony, and everyone was curious to hear her words. "I want to thank Daddy Daniel for taking care of Mommy and for teaching me that families can be made of love, not just blood," she said in her clear voice, moving many guests to tears. "And I want to tell everyone that I got the best dad in the world." When it was time to exchange rings, Daniel knelt to be at Lily's height, while Sarah placed the ring on his finger, and then he did the same with her. Next, they placed a small gold bracelet on Lily, symbolizing that she was also part of that union. "By the power vested in me, I declare you husband, wife, and family," announced Dr. Carlos. "Daniel, you may kiss your wife." The kiss was gentle and full of promises, accompanied by the emotional applause of the guests and Lily's excited shout, "Now we are a real family!" The celebration that followed was simple yet warm. Round tables scattered throughout the garden, decorated with white tablecloths and arrangements of natural flowers. The menu blended Mrs. Thompson's Midwest traditions, sugar bread, cheddar cheese, caramel, with the delights from a local catering service that Sarah had ordered. Gourmet sandwiches, artisanal snacks, special chocolate truffles. During dinner, Fernanda stood up to make a toast. "I have known Sarah for over 5 years, and I can say I have never seen her as happy as in the last few months. Daniel, you haven't just gained a wonderful wife, you've gained a complete family. And Lily, you have a dad that any child would dream of having." Mrs. Thompson also asked to speak. "When I first came to New York, I confess I was worried. But seeing my son with you, seeing how Lily flourishes with his love, I understood that sometimes God sends us the family we need, not necessarily the one we expected." As evening fell, when garden lights turned on, creating a magical atmosphere, Daniel and Sarah danced their first dance as husband and wife to the sound of "I Know That I Will Love You" by Tom Jobim. Lily danced with them for part of the song, creating an image that many guests photographed as a symbol of the love that had blossomed from that union. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel whispered in Sarah's ear as they danced. "About how 15 months ago I was desperate and scared, thinking my life was over," she replied softly. "And now I'm here, married to the most incredible man I've ever met, watching our daughter radiant with happiness." "Our daughter," Daniel repeated, savoring the words. "I like how that sounds." "Daniel," called Lily, interrupting the romantic moment. "Yes, "Little butterfly? Can I call you Daddy in front of everyone now?" she asked, even knowing what the answer would be. "Yes, my love, always," Daniel replied, picking her up to continue dancing now as a complete family. When the party. After the ceremony ended, the guests said their goodbyes with warm hugs and wishes of happiness. Daniel, Sarah, and Lily returned home, not as a dating couple with a child, but as an officially established family. In their apartment on Augusta Street, now adorned with a new sign on the door reading "The Johnson-Smith Family," they sat on the living room sofa, still dressed in their wedding attire, processing everything that had happened. "Can you believe we did it?" Sarah said, nestled between her husband and daughter. "Did what?" Lily asked. "We achieved happiness," Daniel replied, kissing his wife's forehead. "Despite all the obstacles, all the people who tried to tear us apart, all the fears, we built our family." "And now?" Sarah inquired. "Now we live happily ever, after like in the movies," declared Lily with the absolute conviction of children. "I think Lily is right," Daniel laughed. "But our story is better than any movie because it's real." 6 months later, in November, they officially opened the Protection and Care Institute, a non-profit dedicated to helping women victims of domestic violence and their children. The project combined Daniel's experience in public safety with Sarah's knowledge in healthcare, offering not only legal protection, but also psychological and medical support for the families served. The non-profit's headquarters operated in the former home of Mrs. Thompson in Springfield, which she had donated to the project after permanently relocating to New York to be closer to family. The space was renovated to temporarily house women and children in risky situations, providing a safe environment where they could rebuild their lives. Lily, now 10 years old, often helped at the non-profit on weekends, playing with the younger children and showing that it was possible to be happy even after traumatic experiences. Her personal story, as the daughter of divorced parents who found happiness in a blended family, served as inspiration for other children in similar situations. The home in Brooklyn had transformed into a true haven. The kitchen, where everything had started with a nervously served cup of coffee, was now the scene of noisy family mornings, with Lily sharing stories about school while Daniel prepared the Midwest coffee that Mrs. Thompson had taught him to make the right way. Sarah, always the first to wake up due to her shifts, watched the domestic scene with a deep smile of satisfaction. The evenings were dedicated to Lily's homework, which Daniel took very seriously. Family dinners at the small kitchen table and intimate moments on the living room sofa, watching movies or simply discussing plans. For the future, it was a simple life without great luxuries or extraordinary adventures, but filled with the kind of solid and true love that withstands any storm. The love that had been born on a tense morning had transformed into a solid foundation upon which they built not only a relationship, but a legacy of hope for other families going through similar situations. In December, exactly 2 years after the marriage proposal in the middle of the living room, Daniel and Sarah discovered they were expecting a baby. Lily was the first to know, and her reaction was pure joy. "Now I'm going to be a big sister. I'm going to teach the baby how great it is to have Daddy Daniel as a dad." As the new year approached, bringing with it the promise of more changes and growth, the Johnson-Smith family knew they had built something rare and precious, a love that had survived all adversities and strengthened with each obstacle overcome. The story that had begun with a phone call to the police on a frightening night had transformed into a saga of hope, proving that sometimes the happiest endings arise from the most unlikely beginnings, and that true love always finds a way to triumph, no matter how many forces conspire against it. On New Year's Eve, as they watched the fireworks from the apartment balcony, with Lily sleeping in Daniel's lap and Sarah's hand gently resting on her belly, where their second child was growing, they knew they had found something more valuable than any treasure. They had found their place in the world, in each other's arms.